Aloha. Today I'm going to be working with the July 2021 paper pumpkin kit called The Adventure Begins. So let's go ahead and get started. Now when this month's paper pumpkin kit arrived, I was pretty blown away by these cards. These were really unique. I love the fact that they had these beautiful colors and patterns, and then each card is a trifold card. So they came like this. You'd fold this in, you could glue this down if you'd like, and then you would go ahead and you would add some of the punch out pieces or the stamps or the tags from the paper pumpkin kit and embellish these cards, and you would just instantly make absolutely beautiful cards. Now, even the envelope, which I tend to chop up a lot when I'm doing my alternate projects, is so pretty. I had a really hard time chopping up this kit, to be honest with you. So what I decided to do is the first card that I created was this card here. So this card is actually exactly as it was intended to be. I like the sentiment that says, "Let your light shine." I love the cute little sequence. And then I love the way that this card opens up like that. And I think it's just a really, really fun and pretty card. Now, the second sample in the kit was this one here. So this one, again, is made exactly as it was intended to be. The only thing that I did different is I changed the sentiment. So rather than use the sentiment that came in the kit, I just cut a separate piece of paper and I mounted it onto the front. But other than that, this card is exactly as it was meant to be. The only thing that I didn't do to this card was I did not glue this panel down. So then you have a card that you can open up and write an even bigger message on the inside here, okay? Now for the next card I'm going to show you, it's this one here. So this one is again similar to how this card was supposed to look. The only thing that I did was I added 3 stars with our new shimmery paper that's a part of our celebration. And then I did put my own tag here, and I used the sentiment that's supposed to go on this card. But then the piece that was supposed to be on the outside of the card, I cropped it down and I put it on the inside of the card so that this card would have a double message. Dream big, aim high, and let your light shine. All right, so the main card that I altered the most, well, I can't show it to you because I'm gonna save that one for my next video, but that's the one with the camper. So be sure to check out my next video and I'm gonna show you a really fun card that I did with that. But for today's video, I wanna show you a technique, and I'm gonna show you how I altered this particular card here and made it into 2 different cards. And then I'll show you some more samples. So let's get started on that. For this card, we're gonna start with some stamping. So I have a piece of basic white cardstock. This is 2 1/4 by 5 inches. I'm going to be stamping with this large tree image from the stamp set, and then I'll be using some Daffodil Delight ink, okay? Now this is a photopolymer stamp, so I wanna pat it on top of the pad and ink it up really well. And then I'm gonna take it, now that it's all inked up, and I'm going to kind of roll it onto the card at an angle like that. You can see through it so you can see that it's getting inked up really well. Then I'm gonna lift this up, and then I'm gonna pull it down slightly, and I'm gonna stamp it again, okay? Then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna repeat this pattern in many different directions all over the front of this card. I'm gonna roll it on, press it down, make sure it gets all the ink nicely distributed, which is great because you can see through the block. Then I'm gonna lift it up, I'm gonna move it slightly. Now I wanna be careful that I don't move it this way, because anywhere where it was off the edge, there's gonna be an uneven amount of ink that would come out, and we don't want that. So I'm always gonna pull it down and then stamp it a second time. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and quickly do this, and then I'm gonna fill up the whole card, okay? Ready or not, here I go. Okay, so basically what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a pattern that would completely change from a tree image. I didn't want you to look at this and see trees. And so I just did some overstamping, which is what I would call this technique, where I just overstamped the image in a bunch of different directions, different layers of ink, and I covered up as much of the white space as I could. All right, so this is going to be like our own designer paper, and then we're gonna use that as the base to work on. Next, I'm gonna be using Memento ink, and I'm going to ink up Let Your Light Shine, and I'm going to stamp this up in the top right corner. Okay, so I said we're going to be altering this card here, and so what we wanna remove for our alternate project here is the lantern. So the way that I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna open up the flap, and I'm going to carefully push the lantern in like that, okay? And then I'm gonna take my scissors, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off. All right, so now I'm gonna take and I'm gonna place the lantern right here on the bottom, and then I'm gonna take this image and I'm going to ink it up. I'm gonna just use that as a guideline, and I'm gonna stamp 1, 2, 3 times. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and put this card together. So I'm going to take this piece here and turn it over. I'm going to add some liquid glue. And then I'm going to mount this to a piece of basic black cardstock that's 2.5 by 5 1/4. Now we're going to be making a mini slim card today. When you do that with a piece of 8.5 by 11, you can get 3 cards by taking on the 11 side and cutting it at 2 3/4 inches. So this is 2 3/4 by 11, and we're going to fold it in half. Bone folder. Okay, and then I'm going to turn this over. Put some adhesive on the back. And we're going to mount this on here. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do is flip this around. I'm going to grab some dimensionals. I'm going to add a couple dimensionals. Actually, I'll add 3 of them to the back of this piece. Take off the backing. And I'm going to place this right here. All right, we are going to embellish this card with 3 mini rhinestones. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3, and this card is done. So this card shows how you can use that tree image and create a really different look for the background. Now let me show you another sample where I did it. This one's a little bit more simple. I just did a note card size. You can see I did all that light pattern with that overstamping with the tree. And then I used one of our new celebration sparkly paper here. And then on the sentiment, I just used a Stamp and Blend to highlight the word shine. And then I fussy cut this one out and I just added a little bit of Stamp and Blend's marker there as well, and then a rhinestone. Okay, so that's another example. But let me show you what this looks like in a totally different color. So here it is in Midnight Muse. So you can see that it kind of almost has like a camouflagey look to it. So really you could do this with any color. And then for this, the Let Your Light Shine is, I just did this star image here to just have that be the focal point. But then you can see how you could use that tree to create a really interesting background pattern. Okay, so once I finished the card, I ended up with this piece here, and this was just too pretty to waste. Now when I look at this piece, it reminds me of Christmas. So I decided to partner this up with the Frosted Gingerbread stamp set. I used this image here and I stamped it with Blushing Bride ink on Blushing Bride cardstock. Then I used the Laura's tape technique. I placed a piece of tape over my cardstock and my stamped image. I ran it through the die cutting machine, and then I got that really shiny, pretty ornament that I could hang on the tree. I used one of the tags from the Paper Pumpkin kit and I stamped one of the sentiments that's in this Frosted Gingerbread set as well. And then because this had these hot spots here where the little light bug was supposed to be stamped, I just went ahead and used that as an accent place for the sequence. And then I added some jewel rhinestones on there as well. So this was just a fun way that I didn't have to waste this piece here because I used the lantern to create this card here. Okay, so again, I had a tough time chopping up these cards, but I thought these were kind of fun as an alternate card, but I only did one alternate this time, and I'm saving the rest of the pieces that I have in this kit to create the cards exactly as they were intended to be, because Stampin' Up! Just did such a great job on this kit. All right, let me show you one more alternative project and a little technique. Again, no need to demo this because it's so simple. Okay, if you have an embossing folder, you can take that embossing folder, take whatever paper that you are going to emboss, but let's say you want to have a little area on the cardstock where you want to stamp a sentiment. Simply place your cardstock into the embossing folder and then leave a section out. In fact, you could even stamp your sentiment on there so you'll know that it'll fit, and then you go ahead and die cut it. By doing this, then a portion of your cardstock will be embossed, and then you'll have a nice clean part here. And if you do that, then you can do a card like this. So you can see I embossed just this section, I left that part off, and then I just had a space for the sentiment, and then this tree here was stamped and fussy cut from the stamps that are in this month's Paper Pumpkin kit. Well, this concludes part 1 of my Paper Pumpkin series, The Adventure Begins. I hope that you learned some simple tips and tricks that you can use while you're working with your Paper Pumpkin kit. Now be sure to check out my next video where I'm going to teach you how to create a magnet slider card, and we're going to watch that camper slide across the front of the card. So I look forward to sharing that with you real soon. Until then, aloha.